Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. President Yoon addressed the nation in his second policy briefing, vowing to realize reform policies in pension, labor, health, education, and birth rate. Specifically, his proposal for pension reform will be largely rooted in ensuring sustainability, fairness between generations, and income security for senior citizens. The Palestinian Health Ministry says at least 10 Palestinians have been killed in a major operation by Israeli forces in the north of the occupied West Bank. The UN Food Agency is halting Gaza-style movement in the Gaza Strip after its team came under fire near an Israeli checkpoint. Paris is once again bustling with the 2024 Paralympics now in full swing. About 4,400 athletes from a record 168 delegations will be chasing gold in 22 Paralympic sports. We begin with President Yoon policy briefing and press conference. During his 30-minute live address to the nation, Yoon touched on some of his past tasks and updated the public on his four main reforms. They are pensions, education, labor, and the medical sector, as well as tackling the current low birth rate. For more, we have our correspondent Kim Do-yeon on the line. Do-yeon.
Dami, as you said, the live address focused on his reforms you mentioned. For today, pension was in the spotlight as he unveiled for the first time how the government is trying to reform the pension system. You said the final version of the proposal is coming with specific numbers to present to the Nat'l Assembly.
노인은 가난하고 청년은 믿지 못하는 지금의 연금 제도를 근본적으로 개혁해야 합니다. 22대 국회가 근본적인 개혁 논의에 속도를 낼 수 있도록 저는 오늘 정부가 구상하는 연금 개혁의 방향을 말씀드리고자 합니다.
He said the government's proposal for pension reform is based on sustainability, fairness among generations, and income security for senior citizens. First, he said he will make long-term sustainable changes to the system to restore the public's trust in the nation's pension system, adding that simply adjusting parameters to extend the fund depletion date by 8 to 9 years is not sufficient. One major push for a change he emphasized was that people pausing their pension contributions due to military service or childbirth will be given credit to not create any gaps. For fairness among generations, President Yoon says the proposal will focus on making the system acceptable to the younger generation who contribute the most over the longest period and start receiving the benefits last. This, he says, can be done through making the pace of premium increases different for the young and the middle-aged. Lastly, he spoke on expanding incentives such as tax benefits for personal pensions to maximize the possible retirement income.
Now, Do-yeon, another hot topic is medical reform. With the government's unchanged stance on increasing the number of medical students starting next year, the standoff between the government and the nation's doctors continues, and there are concerns over the medical system's stability. What did he have to say here?
He actually says the medical reforms are being finalized, saying that the increase in the number of medical students is going according to plan.
이제 의대 증원이 마무리된 만큼 개혁의 본질인 지역 필수 의료 살리기에 정책 역량을 집중하겠습니다. 먼저 의사 확충과 함께 교육 수련 선진화에 만전을 기하겠습니다. 2025학년도 의대 신입생 모집은 현재 차질 없이 진행되고 있습니다.
He reiterated his stance that medical reform and increasing the number of doctors is one of the core agendas for boosting non-capital regions. He also said the whole structure will be changed for tertiary hospitals, which have been overly dependent on resident doctors. He's looking to change it so that specialists and clinical support nurses become the core of medical services from now on.
Right, so an unchanged stance there. Now, what about the other reforms? I mean, what was the key takeaway when it comes to the chronically low birth rate?
For education and labor reforms, nothing has changed much. The president spoke on public care for education while making sure labor laws are followed. As for low birth rate, which was his focus during the last time he had a policy briefing and press conference, he reminded the public about the new senior secretary role he created for this while pushing for a ministry to tackle the issue. He said the low birth rate is connected to all of the reforms and that these tasks need to be completed to bring up the low birth rate. That's all for now. I'll be back with more in later cash. Tommy?
All right, thanks, Doyan, for the report. We appreciate it. And with growing concerns over digital crimes using deepfake images, the government and the ruling party came up with measures that toughen penalties. And a control tower is also set to be established in order to better coordinate a pan-governmental response. Our political correspondent, Shin-young, has more.
Regarding the recent rise in digital sex crimes using sexually explicit deepfake images in South Korea, the government and the ruling party have agreed to strengthen penalties for those who make or send such content. After a meeting at the Nat'l Assembly on Thursday, the PPP's policy chief Kim Sang-un told reporters that they plan to increase the maximum sentence for producing and distributing fake images or videos from the current 5 years to 7 years, aligning it with the penalty for illegal recordings. They are also working on establishing a hotline with Telegram, a messaging app that has been used to share fake, sexually explicit images and videos to better deal with the issue of illegal content, given the difficulties in cooperation due to its overseas servers. The two sides are also considering creating a control tower within the Office for Government Policy Coordination to oversee and coordinate the response to deepfake crimes. Referring to recent deepfake abuse cases where many offenders were found to be law-breaching minors without criminal responsibility, PPP leader Han Dong-hoon emphasized the need for bipartisan agreement to lower the age threshold for law-breaching minors. Currently, law-breaching minors are children aged 10 to 14, subject to protective disposition instead of criminal penalty. Meanwhile, the country's education ministry on Wednesday warned that student offenders committing crimes against fellow students in school will face high levels of disciplinary action, including expulsion. In addition to expulsion, other possible disciplinary actions include mandatory voluntary hours, special education or counseling, and school transfers. The type of actions against offenders will depend on factors such as the severity of damage, as well as the duration and the intentionality of the offense. Shin-young, Arirang News.
And what is the first bipartisan accord of the current National Assembly? Lawmakers on Wednesday approved an array of bills to improve people's daily lives. Our correspondent Lee Si-ho reports.
On Wednesday, the 22nd National Assembly representatives were hard at work, hammering out 28 pieces of legislation that will impact many aspects of people's lives, tackling pending issues in real estate, energy, medical service, and more. In a rare show of consensus, all 295 lawmakers present at the plenary session voted to provide greater support for the victims of real estate rental scams. A revision to an existing act, this will guarantee the victims up to 20 years of residence in the property they've rented. Another proposal restricting the rights of parents to inherit their deceased sons or daughters' money and assets when they did not sufficiently carry out their parental duties passed with strong support. The so-called Kuhara bill is named after the late K-pop star, whose mother and brother disputed over who would inherit the singer's money after her death. And perhaps the most fiercely debated, the revision to the current Nursing Act, which was tabled after a last-minute agreement in a late-night meeting of the Health and Welfare Committee. The rival lawmakers met halfway just hours before the plenary session and agreed to provide the legal basis for further medical practice by nurses who qualify to act as physician assistants.
This defines the additional roles of nurses with qualifying professional, clinical, and educational experience in providing medical service under a doctor's general guidance or delegation.
The Nursing Act aims to protect them so they can put all their attention and focus on providing medical care to patients and thereby ultimately protect the lives and health of the people.
This comes at an especially critical time as South Korea deals with a shortage of medical personnel at major hospitals after many doctors resigned in protest of medical school enrollment expansion, and just a day before the nurses planned protests calling for better working conditions. A goal since the previous assembly, the revision passed with 283 lawmakers voting for, 2 against, and 5 abstaining in an unprecedented bipartisan move toward a coalition by the current assembly.
But tensions still linger as the rival lawmakers prepare to discuss potential agendas for the much-anticipated meeting between their party leaders, PPP's Han and DP's Lee, which is expected in weeks. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
Most branches of the Korean Health and Medical Workers Union on Thursday successfully reached a labor settlement with medical institutions where they are employed. The agreement is set to improve working conditions, following the approval of the Nursing Act revision by the Nat'l Assembly the day before. The union, consisting mostly of nurses, had planned a strike at 62 medical institutions around the country. But the passing of the bill, providing the legal basis for qualified nurses to provide further medical service as a physician assistants, among other changes, led to successful negotiations at 59 medical institutions. Negotiations include pay increases and clear boundaries regarding roles in the absence of doctors. The CEO of a South Korean lithium battery maker has been arrested on charges related to a recent factory fire that claimed 23 lives and injured 8. Suwon District Court cited the seriousness of the charges for the arrest warrant for Park Sun-kwon, the CEO of Arirang, on Thursday. The arrest warrant was issued under the Serious Accidents Punishments Act and is the first time a company CEO has been arrested since the implementation of this law in 2022 to prevent serious workplace accidents. Following the fire in Hwasong, the investigation revealed that Arirang had illegally deployed unskilled workers to the factory in a rush to meet deadlines, resulting in dangerous defective products. South Korea's Army Special Forces and the U.S. military held a 5-day combined drill involving a special strike operation in Gwangju, Gyeonggi-do Province. The training that wrapped up on Wednesday focused on bolstering offensive strike capabilities and mastering advanced combat skills. It involved Washington's aerial assets, such as the UH-60 Black Hawk and the CH-47 helicopters. The drill took place on the sidelines of Seoul and Washington's Ulji Freedom Shield exercise, designed to boost military capabilities against evolving North Korean threats. The 11-day UFS exercise ended on Thursday morning, but combined outdoor drills will continue until mid-September. Israel continues its offensives in the occupied West Bank, with large-scale raids and airstrikes being carried out on Wednesday. And the UN Food Agency is also halting Gaza staff movements in the Gaza Strip after its team came under fire near an Israeli checkpoint. Lee Seung-jae reports.
With Israel continuing its offensives in Gaza, its military is also expanding attacks in the occupied West Bank. The Israeli military on Wednesday carried out raids and airstrikes in northern regions of the West Bank, killing at least 10 Palestinians. The Israel Defense Forces said that it was part of a counter-terror operation, combining the use of drones and bulldozers, but also military and security forces. Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz said the latest operation aims to thwart Islamic Iranian terrorist infrastructure, adding that Tehran was looking to form an eastern front against Israel. He added that threats in the West Bank must be dealt with in the same way as in Gaza. An IDF spokesperson said Wednesday that Israel had identified the smuggling of weapons and explosives into the region by Iran. Meanwhile, the humanitarian situation in Gaza may further worsen, as the World Food Program announced it will be halting all aid movement in the enclave. This comes as one of its vehicles was hit with repeated gunfire close to an Israeli checkpoint. The agency said that despite the vehicle being clearly marked and having received multiple clearances by Israeli authorities to approach the checkpoint, The vehicle was fired at repeatedly. None of the passengers were harmed, but an image released by the WFP showed that at least 10 bullets hit the vehicle. The agency has been crucial in its distribution of food throughout Gaza, as famine has been widespread for months. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights also reported Wednesday that the Israeli military bombed a car passing through a Syrian border checkpoint near the Lebanese border, killing 4 people. The Civil War Monitoring Group said a car exploded in a drone attack and that 3 Palestinians and 1 Lebanese national were killed. However, according to a Reuters report citing a local security source, the 3 Palestinians were members of the Islamic Jihad, while the Lebanese national was a member of Hezbollah. 이승재, Arirang News.
A colorful opening ceremony opened the Paris 2024 Paralympics with more than 4,000 athletes from a record 168 delegations competing over 11 days. Team Korea will compete in 17 sports. Yoon tells us more.
The opening ceremony of the 2024 Paralympics began on Wednesday night with French President Emmanuel Macron officially opening the event. The 168 delegation athletes parade started from the bottom of the Champs-Élysées, with some 50,000 people watching the ceremony in the stands erected in Place de la Concorde in central Paris. And as was the case for this summer's Olympics, when the opening ceremony was held on the River Seine in July, the curtain raiser for the Paralympics was, for the first time in history, held outdoors rather than inside a stadium. During the ceremony, fighter planes flew overhead, leaving red, white, and blue vapor trails in the colors of the French national flag before the delegations entered the square. Lucky Love, a French singer who was born with one arm, was joined by performers in wheelchairs when he sang on stage. Then, as the national anthem played, the Luxor obelisk lit up in the colors of the French flag. 4,400 athletes with physical, visual, and intellectual impairments will compete in 22 disciplines over 11 days until the closing ceremony on Sunday, September 8th. Events will take place in 18 of the 35 Olympics venues in the city. Organizers say ticket sales that had been sluggish since the Olympics had picked up, and more than 2 million of the 2.8 million tickets were sold for the various Paralympic events, with several venues sold out. Competitions began on Thursday, and the first medals to be handed out will be in taekwondo, table tennis, swimming, and track cycling. Athletes are grouped by impairment levels to ensure as level a playing field as possible. At the 2024 Paris Paralympics, South Korea has 83 athletes competing in 17 different disciplines. Yoon, Arirang News.
The combined attendance record for the KBO League has been broken yet again, surpassing 9 million for the first time in the league's 42-year history. According to the league on Wednesday, following the fixtures on the same day, the 10 KBO League teams saw a total of 9,009,040 fans that came out to the ballparks in the 610 games so far in 2024. This is thanks to the attendance of 6 out of 10 games surpassing 1 million this season. With 20 or so games remaining for each team, the league could see combined attendance surpass 10 million. Now, the previous record for single season attendance set 7 years ago was broken earlier this month.
Let's move on to the world now. Berkshire Hathaway, the conglomerate led by investor Warren Buffett, has surpassed $1 trillion in market value. This places Berkshire Hathaway in an exclusive group of just 6 other companies, including Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. It is also the only one of the trillion-dollar group that isn't a big tech company. Buffett, who is just about to turn 94, has been at the helm of Berkshire since 1965. Under his leadership, the company's shares have skyrocketed by over 5.6 million%, an annual growth of 20%. Berkshire Hathaway's vast portfolio includes brands like American Express, Coca-Cola, and Bank of America, along with a significant stake in Apple, despite selling off more than half of its shares this year. Despite donating over half of his shares to charity, Buffett still owns over 14% of the company. His net worth is estimated at $145 billion, making him the 6th richest person in the world, according to Forbes. The second quarter results for tech giant NVIDIA have gone above expectations. The company's earnings report showed adjusted earnings of 68 cents per share and $30 billion in revenue. This surpassed analysts' expectations of 64 cents per share earnings and $28.8 billion revenue. NVIDIA also projected third quarter revenue of $32.5 billion, which is above analyst predictions. The company also approved a $50 billion share buyback, but despite the strong numbers, NVIDIA's stock dropped 6% following the announcement. NVIDIA has become a dominant force in the artificial intelligence sector, growing into one of the world's largest companies by market capitalization. Tech giants are investing heavily in the company's chips and data centers, which are crucial for training and operating their AI systems. Shanshan Huang, founder and CEO of NVIDIA, has told analysts that investors in NVIDIA are getting returns right away and that, quote, it is the best ROI computing infrastructure investment you can make today. The 81st Venice Film Festival kicked off on Wednesday local time with a star-studded gala drawing filmmakers and cinema enthusiasts from across the globe. Hollywood legend Sigourney Weaver, known for her roles in Alien and Avatar, was honored with the Golden Lion Lifetime Achievement Award. Weaver's celebrated career spans 5 decades of critical and commercial success. Following the ceremony, attendees of the festival were treated a premiere screening of Tim Burton's Beetlejuice. Walter Lee, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Typhoon Shanshan has made landfall in Japan's southwestern prefecture of Kagoshima this morning. That typhoon will also have indirect impact on parts of Korea's south and east sea, with high seas watches and a typhoon warning being in place. Also, strong wind advisory has been issued to Busan and nearby areas, as well as Jeju Island. Strong easterly winds will bring showers to the east coast and Jeju with up to 60 millimeters in the forecast until Friday. So those of you in the east need to brace for a strong weather system today. Meanwhile, western parts of Korea are having midsummer level heat, with Seoul and Gwangju expected to top out at 34 degrees Celsius under sunny skies. And this morning, Jeju woke up to the longest run of tropical nights on record at 45, and should see a high of 32 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Now, those of us in the capital area need to brace for strong afternoon heat throughout the weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.